Hi there, everybody. It's Michele Denman. Okay. If you didn't see my previous video about Johnny Depp and the Sparrow, watch that. I had to have a little moment to recover. It was pretty emotional, unexpected completely. I was just, in the spirit in that one. And just watch that about the Sparrow. It's pretty wild, the connections. I had to kind of recover after that just the healing that's going on right now, and trauma being healed and abuse and all of that kind of stuff is connected to everything that's happening. But please watch the video, previous one, if you missed that on the Sparrow. So Jesus, I just thank you for this moment right now. And I ask you right now for eyes to see and ears to hear. Give us clarity right now, Lord. And we know your light is shining, God. We know your light is shining. We thank you, Lord Jesus, for light. We thank you for truth. And we thank you for what you want us to learn right now, what you want us to see right now. And help us see, God. Help us see through what's happening in the world. Help us see, God, and give us hope and truth. So I feel led to say we really do want to have hope in this time. I mean, it's about being a positive light. It's about, being a positive light for the children and being examples, of leadership and how, what true integrity is and excellence, and demonstrating that children would have real role models that are good and wholesome and, things to aspire to, things to be inspired by. And that's really the hope right now. And, I feel we need hope right now more than we ever have. We really need that kind of almost, optimism, if you will, to be the lights, to shine in this darkness, to shine in the light right now. So I really want to bring hope. And I believe that's what's happening. The Lord's been talking to us about a mass exodus or a mass deliverance. And in the process that we're in right now, as we are being healed, there's a lot. I mean, there's so much. It's really deep. We're being healed. There's, light exposing things and, growth, and we're learning, and, the light is shining actually right now. And that's what revival is. Revival is life. Revival is light. And revival is deep. Jesus says in Joel 2:28, I will pour my spirit on all flesh. So partly what we're seeing, and it's all coming up, it's so many are being affected by what's been going on with Johnny Depp, because it's literally showing like trauma, abuse, healing, how abuse as a child and how that forms someone into their adulthood. And then, this is all connected and linked, it's some really deep stuff. But part of what's happening right now is in this deliverance, because we are being delivered from, the enemy. We're being delivered from all of this stuff. I'm thinking of the Lord's Prayer right now, where, give us this day our daily bread. And I'm thinking of when it's deliver us from evil, deliver us from evil, Lord. That's part of that Lord's Prayer right now, is that aspect of being delivered. And, in Joel 2 as well, it's funny, I was thinking about this and I went back to my Bible to look at this again, and it really hit me like a ton of bricks. So Joel 2:28, and afterward I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions. Even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit in those days. I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and billows of smoke. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. For on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, there will be deliverance. There it is. There will be deliverance, as the Lord has said, among the survivors whom the Lord calls. Isn't that interesting? Whom the Lord calls. This is in Joel 2. I love that part. Whom the Lord calls. So this is a powerful thing and a powerful statement, as prophesied, prophesied in the Holy Scriptures, and we have it right there. And we're seeing this happen, and sometimes it's hidden, sometimes it's not as obvious, sometimes the truth, as Luke 8:17 says, I will bring all that's dark, bringing it to light. Sometimes it's not always apparent, but those with eyes to see and ears to hear, the Lord said, are going to see these things. So we see this playing out with Johnny Depp and the trial because of the talk of abuse, the talk of childhood trauma, the talk of childhood, being abused on so many levels, verbally, physically, all of those things. And then we're seeing, as those things with Johnny Depp and talking about trauma, we're also seeing then when you grow up and then you have to learn about what kind of people you might attract if you haven't healed yet, if you're not whole yet. And then we're getting this whole learning about borderline personality, histrionic personality, narcissism as well, because I think that's another aspect here. I've been doing so much research, and this other aspect, there's a book called The People of the Lie. And M. Scott Peck wrote this book in the 80s. And this book is so profound. This book is profound because it literally highlights and talks about people of the lie, that are people that will typically project, being unwilling to take responsibility for their own issues. And then they blame everybody else. It's never about them. They're perfect. They're, wonderful. And everybody else is the issue. Everyone else is the problem. And Scott Peck talked about in this book that as a psychiatrist, he would find that there'd be people on his couch, and these people he could do nothing with. He could not help them. They would refuse. They had just absolutely no willingness to heal. And one of the things that I thought about, and I learned this in my research this week, is this, that it hit me like a ton of bricks when I was looking at the Bible as well. In 2 Timothy 3:1-9, it talks about in the last days, people are going to be selfish, boastful, rude, abusive, cruel, all of these things about of that. It even talks about one version of the Bible said narcissistic. It actually uses those words, which is, that self-absorption, that says that in one of the versions of the Bible I read. So we're going to see that in the last days. We're going to see these kind of people. So when Scott Peck is speaking about the people of the lie, one of the things that hit me is the ultimate, what narcissism is. The ultimate is a self that is completely unwilling to surrender to something bigger, to surrender to God, to to surrender to something greater. And it's the self, and that's the evil. That's the people of the lie that he's talking about. And he was saying, and I think he was way ahead of his time, and this was in the 80s, but I think he was way ahead of his time with this, because he speaks of it. And then he writes another book where he actually talks about it being like a demonic, and he literally goes into that deeper, which is another aspect I have yet to, I'm learning so much about that with learning about deliverance and things like that. But from his perspective, I've been solely focused this week with the first book is one, that's where I'm going as the Lord leads me. And when he's talking about people of the lie or evil, he was saying literally, and this is something that God has been saying to me about how to appropriately diagnose. And he was saying that if we could actually, he was saying this back in the 80s, he was saying that if we could actually almost put a diagnosis of almost like a disease, that, how do you truly find the cure for something if you don't know properly? It's kind of like what I was saying last week was, you're treating cancer, but yet the issue has to do with the heart. And so that came to me last week, because I was sharing with you about to properly diagnose. You can't find a cure if you don't know exactly. And that's what's happening here. So what's interesting about this, and it goes along with Scott Peck, is that the psychology community, the psychologists are saying this is a personality disorder. Now, this all came out with Johnny Depp's trial about his ex-wife. So, these personality disorders, borderline and histrionic personality. So the psychology community recognizes it as a disorder. But as I was sharing with you, the spiritual, which is a spiritual realm, that is not in the realm of psychology. But then we look at the actual spirit, which Scott Peck was investigating and dealing with back in that time. And I mean, it's been around much longer than the 80s. I mean, it's been around for eons of time, but I'm just specifically talking about the research and things he brought out at that time period. And so then there's the spiritual aspect of looking at the spiritual, and that, is there a need for deliverance? Does the person need to be freed from that? And the interesting thing that Scott Peck says, which I find profound, is an interesting quote he had, a very powerful quote about these people refusing to admit. So they have absolutely no willingness to admit any wrong, no willing to admit they need help, no willingness to admit any kind of fault. And because they refuse to repent or own, or be honest, it's really about being honest. For refusing that, then they just instead project and blame. So it's gaslighting. They're gaslighting everybody around them. They're blaming everybody around them. And the reason I'm bringing all this up, because it's all connected. This is all connected, and it's fascinating because what's literally happening, and this is, again, a war we're in a war. And I'm using the example of Johnny Depp because it's something that's real, that's we see in the news, and it's been, millions of people are watching, but what it's showing us is what is happening through this. And again, it's in the spirit, but it's a massive, massive gaslighting is happening. Now, the gaslighting was happening from Johnny's ex-wife to him. But now what's happening, I want to just kind of help you see this even more. What I saw, and this is where it's just been overwhelming, is what I saw is not only what she did to him, but the gaslighting is what I saw from her entire team. And they're gaslighting the public, they're gaslighting the jury, they're gaslighting everybody to totally, it's so to twist. It's that evil to twist, and it's blame shifting and twisting. And it's what I saw all this week. And it was funny. Here's the interesting, I just remembered something. Here's the interesting thing. This is what's fascinating about this, is they brought it up. Okay, this is what's wild about this, is that her team brought it up with, okay, so they put a psychiatrist on the stand who was there on the side of Amber, okay? And they brought up gaslighting, they brought up narcissism, and what they were doing was they had that psychiatrist say that it was Johnny, that he was the narcissist, and then they brought up gaslighting, and they brought up all of this stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. But it was actually brought up, so it was actually being spoken, but it was from Amber's side, and talking about Johnny. And that he, and this is what's so hard about this whole thing, because, and then this entire weekend, then especially today, this whole gaslighting that's going on, it's to the public and it's to the jury and it's whoever's in that room. I mean, most of the people are on Johnny's side, but this massive gaslighting, and it's like all evil. It's all evil. And it's like, the truth will set us free. The truth will set Johnny free. The truth will set us all free. And that's why this is fascinating, that this is all happening right now. And, it's really a discerning, because wise as serpent, but harmless as a dove, to see this lie that's being perpetuated. And this whole thing is all linked up with that Me Too movement. So the Me Too movement with, all these feminists coming out, and that whole thing was set up as well under a demonic, it's Jezebel. So it's a demonic. Now, it doesn't mean, I'm not here to say that there isn't a truth in women that have gone through with whoever, this is not that every single person, and it doesn't mean women have not been abused. It doesn't mean that that's not true. But to understand, because there's an agenda, the entire Me Too is Jezebel to take out, we're seeing, any kind of man, like, look at what's happened to men. Let's, let's emasculate so that men can be men and women can be women. Okay, that's the whole, again, this is all the lie. Men are men, women are women, mixing it up. And, you know, we saw it happen dramatically where so these men, you know, all of the news stations, all of a sudden it's all women. And again, that doesn't mean that that's wrong, but in the sense you have to understand though, that there's a spirit. Okay. So all of a sudden, then, you know, any man that's a true like man, especially if they're doing any good in the world or doing something, then they're, you know, in this whole Me Too thing. And the interesting thing, and it was brought up, which is, I think is brilliant that today it was brought up, because we have to see through and discern, because this is actually to, first of all, it starts with seduction. So you seduce somebody, then you emasculate the man. And it's a literally like, because there's a spirit behind it, it's war. It's a war. So Johnny's in this war. He's been fighting for his very life, his very soul, his very children, his family, his life, his career. I mean, everything. And that is what's been going on. And the beautiful thing, and what I love about 2 Timothy 3:1-9, one of my favorite verses in that whole thing is in verse 9. It says, and their folly will be known to everyone. Their folly will be known. And that's exactly, because we're seeing, you know, it says in the last days, people are going to be brutal, cruel, but they're folly. So what's happening in the public, okay, the real public, in terms of we the people kind of people, we are aware and awake, and we're like, no, this is all a lie, and we see the lie, you know. So this is a lot going on with this whole thing, you know, about discerning and seeing, you know, the true media, where there would be actually true reporting. And so what's also happening through this whole entire thing is that it's bringing up what they call like internet journalists, or, you know, people that are not, you know, they're not in your typical media. They're like not on CNN, but they are your internet journal. That's where the movement is shifting to. The truth movement is to people that maybe aren't famous, so they're not on NBC, but they are, and this has been brought up as well. And so there's been different people's names actually being highlighted, people that truly know the truth and want the truth, are investigating, and they have already looked at this thing with Johnny for years and years. This has actually been going on for a while. So, you know, these people were named. And so that's what's amazing about this, is that there's an alternative. It's kind of like in the truth movement. It's not, we're not finding it, you know, in the mainstream anymore. You used to see where they would, you know, share things like on the main news channels or CNN. You used to see more truth. You used to see, you know, where they would actually give you both sides at least, or, you know, there would be like some dialogue. And so it's still, things have changed so much in this time. And I'm thinking right now, as I'm talking to you at this very moment, I'm thinking of that book, 1984, George Orwell. And that book, and one of the quotes in it is, truth is a revolutionary act in a time of deceit. Truth is a revolutionary act in a time of deceit. Now, with this whole thing that's going on, I want to just share this with you as well. Now, here's another piece of this. This is something I've been discerning as well. And this is, again, we need so much wisdom to discern this stuff. But here's what's happening. Why we can't just go by someone's words. You can't just believe their words. It has to be their actual action, or maybe what their intent is or motive, because anyone can say any word. Anybody can go blah, 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 you know. So here's what's happening. And I saw this. This is why this week has been so difficult on so many levels in watching what's happening. But what the gaslighting that's happening, okay? The gaslighting that's happening to the public, to this jury, to, you know, the mainstream in so many levels, is to distort. So to use things in a distorted way of saying one thing, but it actually means another. So they will say freedom, but it actually isn't. They will say freedom of speech, but it actually isn't. So that's a whole nother, this is so deep. This is so deep. That's a whole nother piece of this. That's a whole another level of this. So we really need to discern the truth behind the truth. Like, so it doesn't matter if somebody's just saying freedom. No, it's like, really, what's the intent here? What's their motive? What's going on here? So that's another thing with this whole thing. And I saw it this week, and I saw that I wanted to share with you this. I thought it was absolutely fascinating, because at the whole time as this was coming up, these different quotes came to my attention, and I want to give you these like exact definitions, because I actually took this because I thought, isn't it interesting? This is all kind of all happening at the same time. So I want to give you this definition. This will kind of help you to understand gaslighting. So what is gaslighting? Okay. Gaslighting is a psychological manipulation that someone does in a relationship to make another person question their reality. If you can get someone questioning their reality, what does that give you the power to do? Manipulate them, control them, dominate them, degrade them, exploit them. This happens frequently because a person has personality issues such as extreme narcissism, which push them to try to control and manipulate others. Here, this is brilliant. Gaslighting is always used by a person trying to gain power to talk you out of the hurt that they are inflicting upon you. They want to control your reality of the relationship. Gaslighters will confuse you in ways that cause you to doubt yourself. Your view of yourself may change. You may find yourself saying things like, I don't know who I am when I'm with them. What happened to my old self? I feel like everything I do is wrong. Gaslighters will confuse you in ways that cause you to doubt yourself. Your view of yourself may change. You may find yourself saying things like, I don't know who I am when I'm with them. What happened to my old self? I feel like everything I do is wrong. Gaslighters will make you feel isolated. Gaslighters will negate the truth. Gaslighters will make you apologize to them for their distortions, for these distortions of reality. What to do? Watch for when someone is invalidating your experience. Tune into your own experience. And I have to go back here and validate. I had taken so many screenshots of this. I got to invalidate it. Ask yourself whether what you are feeling feels solid and real. If it feels like there's a disconnect, pull back and get better data. Talk to someone you can trust. Explain what's happening. Tell them what you said and what they said and get their feedback. Who you talk to here is important. Make sure that the person doesn't have an agenda. You want them to be for you, but you also want them to be for reality. Keep a diary or a journal. Keep a log of those events so that you can consult the historic record. This will protect you from going back and questioning yourself after the fact. Set boundaries. You can't change the other person, but you can set boundaries that help you protect yourself, your experience, and the way that you respond to their provocations and interference. Ask yourself, what kind of danger am I in here? Sometimes you may need to have a safe person on speed dial. Sometimes you may need to have a deeper support system that you'll have a plan to utilize. That may include knowing what resources, such as shelter, that you may need to utilize if these things would escalate. Just make sure I got every point here. So here, victims of gaslighting use one of our biggest assets in life against us. One of our biggest assets in life is to figure out what is real. We use it to answer core questions in our lives. Where am I? Am I hungry? Am I safe? We are always assessing reality. It's how we walk from the parking lot to the building. Good, honest, loving people open themselves to the outside world to take in input and data and use that form to form a picture and map that explains what's going on around us. We are built to construct reality in relationship between our own experiences and the outside world. In science, this is called assimilation and accommodation. Your experience can tell you one thing, but someone or some external forces may invalidate your own experience and tell you a different story about what you're experiencing. It minimizes, it invalidates, and it confuses. Gaslighting is always used by a person trying to gain power to talk you out of the hurt that they are inflicting upon you. They want to control your reality of the relationship. Gaslighters will confuse you in ways that cause you to doubt yourself. Your view of yourself may change. You may find yourself saying things like, I don't know who I am when I'm with them. What happened to my old self? And I know I shared this part before, but I just wanted to reiterate this. I feel like everything I do is wrong. So this is, again, the narcissist projecting the people of the lie, projecting that reality. This is very real. This stuff is very, very real. Where I got all of these notes from is Henry Cloud, Dr. Henry Cloud. He is a psychologist, Christian psychologist. That's where these notes are all from. These quotes I received. I was studying this and came across Dr. Henry Cloud sharing that. So I wanted to share that with you. Let me set this back down here. Because it's a big thing that's happening right now. And the other thing with all of this is exactly what is going on in the world. So it's not just in this Johnny Depp case, this is happening in the entire world. And this is exactly what's happening with the media. It's exactly what they've done through the whole health issues going on. So much with that. That's a whole nother thing. But this is why, Jesus had talked about the greatest sign of the last days. What did he say? The greatest sign would be deception. The greatest sign would be deception, and to not be deceived. And we have to be aware this is an acceleration in the last days. It's an acceleration of more than I would say even 2 years ago. I mean, I'm astounded. I'm astounded. I mean, it's been going on for a long, it's been going on for aeons of time, but I have definitely seen that an increase of 2 Timothy 3:1-9, as I shared in previous videos I was sharing about. In the last days, people will be selfish and brutal and cruel. And the very interesting thing about that passage of in the last days is that when Johnny was sharing his experience, his exact words were, this was brutal, this was cruel. Like he was like, it's insane. That's one of the words he used is like, this is cruel. Like, say, can you even comprehend? Like, how do you even wrap your brain around when you are loving someone and giving to them and generous to them and their friends and their family, and you've done nothing but pour out love and support. And again, he's not claiming to be perfect, but you've done nothing but, from your heart. And how is this? It's just, that's, it's hard to comprehend. But one of the things that I want to share with you that I have learned, because again, I understand, because I had to go through my own stuff with people. Here's what I learned most importantly, and this will help you with discernment. I've learned this, if you can remember this, and it's DEEP, deep. Never forget this. Don't engage. I'll start over. Don't defend. Don't defend. Don't explain. Don't engage. Don't personalize. If you don't want to get dirty, you don't roll in the mud with the pigs. So you don't want to get dirty. That's from Ross Rosenberg. I want to give credit. I always give credit to, if I received a quote, I always want to give the credit to the person that originated that. So Ross Rosenberg said, if you don't want to get dirty, don't roll around with the pigs. So don't defend yourself. Don't engage. Don't explain. Don't personalize. I have had to learn that. I even hear the Holy Spirit say, shut the door, because it's in the spiritual dimension. Sometimes you just have to shut the door. And one of the things that so many of these psychiatrists, psychologists that are talking about this, they all say that they usually have to just walk away, like no contact. they usually have to walk away. And what happens is, because Johnny had reached that point, he had reached the point of like, I'm out of here. I can't take this anymore. I'm not gonna go through this anymore. And the minute he walked away, it was when he finally said no. And that was when, that is when that's when the defamation against him really started. You know, and then the lies started getting spun, because it was take the focus off of him and to change the narrative. And that's the spirit. That was the spirit, because once he said no more, I'm done, then it was like that spirit, and began to then spin a web of lies. It's funny, I got a tickle in my throat. That's when the web of lies started spinning, and the agenda. And so we really have to see through that. We have to see through what's going on. Most people do. So it's wonderful. But I wanted to share all that with you. Again, there's so much going on, and there's a lot going on out of my throat. This is just the strangest thing. It's interesting. Very interesting. I have that right at this moment, but I wanted to share all that. And, you know, so much going on right now with everything happening, but we just keep praying, just keep praying. We pray for peace, justice, love, and truth. And we keep praying for this, for the truth. God bless you. Take care. Amen. Take care. Bye-bye.